Morning. Morning, Jerry.
Good morning, Yumi. How are you going?
Oh, well, we're back in lockdown. Yes, we are. It's very exciting. We're relying on Uber to eat, and the Australia Post comes to the door to make deliveries. Otherwise, we're not really doing very much. We're just sort of waiting for the threat to pass again.
You're going to think that the issue I want to raise is me having a go at you and everybody in the secret city that's in lockdown. But
bring it on.
the issue which is on my mind is running into people.
Oh God.
Running into see, well, I got a reaction, even though you are in fact not running into people or have no immediate hopes of running into anyone.
No hopes of running into anyone.
Even if you live in a large secret city, you will run into people. You'll run into people in daily life. You'll run into people when you're traveling. Remember travel.
Yes.
What's your stand on that? Do you love it? Do you embrace the awkwardness? How do we reconcile
what
that?
Do we do with the running into? Well, you have to. Oh gosh, you got to figure out which story you're in. And I'm usually wearing the wrong attire. It's usually something very comfortable, but not that flattering.
Is it something with an elasticized waist?
It's probably got a bit of elastic going on there because I try and get back into tailored gear and my body just goes, we're not that comfortable and who cares anyway, which I know is wrong. I'm sure that's very wrong. Right, running into people. I think you fall back on those social skills that you were taught when you were under the age of 6. Hello, how are you? How have you been? And inside you're going, I have no idea what to say. And I can't even remember which version of me you knew. That's one problem that you've got when you change, you're like, we're not in a shared storyline anymore. So what storyline are we in?
I've never heard of this concept of storyline. But when I'm out and about, I'm mainly, I think, in the storyline of I just want to be alone. Just stop the world. I want to get off,
Yeah, it's just short. I'm becoming more like that.
But then if you are in lockdown or if you do move within cities in secret country, then you can miss running into people. That sounds crazy.
Yeah. No, I get what you're saying. Yeah. Because we came from a state that was a social in a different way. Like the first barbecue I went to in my secret city many, many years ago when I first arrived, it was probably me being forgetful and absent-minded, but I didn't bring any meat to the barbecue. And it's secret cities, my secret city has a tradition of when you go to a barbecue, you bring your own meat. I know. See, I can see you frowning as well. And I was like, so I was caught without sausages or steak. And that was very awkward. I don't think I recovered. I still haven't recovered from that faux pas.
This is hilarious. Did you have to pretend to be vegetarian?
They asked me that and I fumbled that one as well. I'm like, I didn't want to say no from Queensland where if you get invited to a barbecue, you generally put on the meat. I didn't know what to do, so I just said, I'm just having a vegetarian week. And so I had some...
wow! Well handled.
Yeah, it was. And I just, then you've got that to deal with that internal cringe, the horror of all awkwardnesses.
Yeah.
God, I still remember the sting of that. I was like, man, how? Of course. I was like, shouldn't I have known that? You bring sausages, steak. Then there's the issue of the cooler, and I'm a terrible navigator anyway, and we didn't have the GPS on the helpful smartphone, which if I didn't have that, I don't think I'd find my way out of a paper bag.
Wow. Anyway, it's a miracle you survived the barbecue at all.
I know. It is a miracle, and I can still feel the horror of it.
And you didn't even discuss things politically, and the barbecue was still challenging. No. Well, or maybe you did.
And the worst thing was they were trying to be nice to me because I was from somewhere else, which is not always the case in the Secret City. That, you don't always get that level. But they were trying to, like, be nice to me, and I mucked up and didn't bring the bloody meat.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
So you run into people in your Secret City, do you
all the time.
Oh, my God.
All the time. I even go through phases where there is a certain person that I might run into. And later on at a function, I saw that certain person and I said, you're my person that I always run into. And he did not deny the relationship. No, he agreed that we were each other's person that we would run into.
You've got a person. Oh, Jerry, that's lovely.
My person's disappeared. I don't run into him anymore. Maybe I need a new person to have that, constant awkwardness, because then it sort of transcends awkwardness and becomes a sort of shared joke. So now it's not really running into a community member. I think it's exactly what you said. I think you're on the money. It's running into someone who knows a different version of yourself.
Yeah, different storyline.
Yeah, a different storyline. And that person, we're not pinning this on clients who have the right to move freely around any secret city they wish. What I think the trigger is does that person bring up the past for you? Because that is a surprising bringing up of the past. It's a bit of an ambush, like,
oh man. And sometimes the past is quite complicated, especially if you've got some legacy. But there are a few legacy people from my adolescence that I suspect followed me to the Secret City. I know that sounds very like I'm selling tickets, but I don't mean it that way. It was a bit alarming how that occurred. Like I made the shift to the Secret City, went back home for a barbecue where meat was provided, and then there was a gathering, and then a lot of like silence while I described my move to the Secret City, and then afterwards, some of those members of that group, of the audience members, they've arrived in my Secret City. I didn't really know how to take that. It kind of bothered me. I was like, it's a bit not quite right.
Did you sell the Secret City? Did you give glowing report of your move?
I think we've all had moments like this.
Did you tell them about how their meat intake could possibly be under threat?
I don't know. Well, in our old Secret City, there was, of course, a social life, So I was out with the medical specialists that night, or the becoming medical specialists, not psychologists, who I don't think really they have a bit of an identity crisis in the health sector in groups of other health professionals. So I was there having one of those moments, and they were all looking at me because there's this mantle of awe that descends around you when you mention you're a psychologist in a group of professionals. They're like, oh, that must be interesting. But really, it's like interesting. You're not quite sure what the word means. Is it interesting or interesting? You don't really know what it means. So I was there thinking, I've got to try and keep up with the pack here. So we had we had a whole lot of anaesthetists, which, I mean, we could say a lot of things about the choices that you make to become an anaesthetist, about your passions in life, like putting people to sleep. It's a very important job. Anyway, I was standing there and I had to come up with a story of what I was up to, and I can't remember exactly what I told, but I tried to liven it up a bit, I think. And this was before I knew I could tell stories, and there was a bit of a spellbound response, so I kept going. I felt encouraged. The next thing I know, there's 3 of them have popped up in the Secret City. So I don't know what that means. I felt quite nervous and hid further in the mountains where I live in the Secret City. Could be any mountains, could be some local to central part of town. What are we talking about today? Oh, yeah. Anyway, back to so if you run into people, how do you handle it? I just try. It doesn't happen that often. You don't handle it.
I have no expectations of myself. I just assume I'm going to handle it the wrong way, and it's going to be awkward, and that this is a part of life. So total acceptance. I sound like an ACT practitioner here.
Yes. Let's
embracing
do a bit of
the awkwardness,
committing to the experience. Yes, the awkwardness.
Yeah, and I've never really grasped that professional standard of pretending like you don't know the person. I think that's because I started out child and adolescent, and what kind of hopeless individual would ignore a child? So it's actually easier when it's a kid because you can, smile and look glad to see them. And I feel like that's in my repertoire.
That's a real thing.
Do that,
yeah.
But, should I ignore them? Should I not ignore them? It's really tricky, but it's tricky in a kind of expected way, and we all find it tricky. I think the bringing up of the past is harder because you can be completely untriggered and the past comes up. You can be just wandering down the street and suddenly, this is CBT in action. Suddenly you start thinking about a difficult period of time when you were undermined and threatened and you become angry, right? I don't know.
Like my
maybe
life.
This is just me. Did you just say sounds like my life?
Yeah, it does. That sounds like a normal day at the office for me. Like that's just life in the big city, in the big secret city. No, I hear what you're saying. What do you do? But I think the other person positions you in their storyline, their narrative, in a way that I barely understood at the time because I was the weird person all the time, which I've now learned is a good thing. But when you're a kid or an adolescent, being weird's not exactly what. Well, you have to grow into it. I think you need to. It's sort of like a clothes that don't fit when you're younger. But when you're older, being weird is awesome. It's the thing to be, Jerry. Weird. Embrace the weird.
Yeah.
What else is going on? Boring? What's the alternative?
Yeah. And it's so hard. And people who the barbecue features in this train of thought too.
Oh, good. So the barbecue,
please trigger warning.
Stay with
me and everyone else who's traumatized by barbecues for whatever reason.
Yeah.
So, do you get the feeling that there's some people, particularly in our old shared secret city, who have friends from high school that they stuck with, and a fairly standard life script? I'm not saying that difficult things haven't happened to them, because of course difficult things happen to everyone. But they have a fairly standard life script and are still friends with people they went to high school with, and anyone who has a different life script, who maybe has to shift secret cities, is going to do it tough because the standard life script people are dominant. Now, is this just an old-fashioned way of looking at the world? Is society so much more fluid and diverse and multicultural, with all different kinds of people all mixed in together, and everybody has such wonderfully unique and intriguing life scripts? It is the standard life script still friends with people they went to school with, barbecue-going person? Are they a myth? Are they the dark shadow side of the weird adults? Please, your thoughts. First of all, did you understand all of that?
Yeah, no, I got you. Like, I love the open manic style of self sort of rambling summary. I love it. That I feel perfectly at home with this sort of talk. I love it. Stream of consciousness, bring it on. But let's try and digest what the hell you're asking for someone who might have got a bit lost in there. So what you're saying is there's like the unlived life, I think is what you're sort of talking about. So there's like a standard kind of script for being human. You're a kid, then you're a young person, then you're a young adult, and maybe
you go to uni.
You get trained, you get yourself a job, you find a partner, attempt to make a family in some form or not. not, but but your family might be you and a partner, and that's life. And for some people that works, and nothing kind of disturbs it. I don't think it's that many people.
You left out the real estate components of that, but I'm with you in broad brushstrokes there.
Yeah. Well, so these beings were gathered at the aforementioned barbecue way back when I was talking to the medical specialists, and I don't know if anyone will ever remember that barbecue, but I was bored out of my brain. I was just so bored. I was like, what? I'd gone there because my parents were friends with the host's parents, and they lived, of course, next door to each other. So my parents were at one address, and I went next door to the kids' big adult child now barbecue on New Year's Eve, and it was very nice of everyone to include poor, weird Immy. When I got there, I could see, from my vantage point of being weird, all the things they were not dealing with. So the friend from school was married to a person who was having an affair with another friend of mine from school. And, of course, it was all secret. And I'm sure they kind of knew what was going on, but nobody knew how to talk about it. So it's a bit like perfect on the outside, and underneath it's a cesspool of forbidden desire.
Wow. Where is Philip Roth when you need him?
Well, so I sat there and I thought it's awkward I've always been one of those people that can see behind the curtain of what's going on. And I'm also a bit unsure when to say what. When I was a kid, I didn't quite, it was that kid that said, "Oh, you're not wearing any clothes." I was that kid. And people, shh, it'd be a bit of this, shh, shh. Speak when spoken to. I just could never quite work that out. So I always saw the wrong thing, but I guess I was seeing what was really going on. I couldn't quite make sense of it. And so I don't know if it is like a standard path. Maybe it is, but there's a lot of restrictions in that path. There's a lot of desire or needs or wants that don't get spoken and don't get discussed, and it can come out sideways in malice and resentment and anger and frustration and drug use and porn. all sorts, Jerry. There we go. That's some thoughts to go on with. What do you make of that?
I am a little bit stunned.
Really?
I can both understand that the barbecue was boring, and yet as you were speaking then I thought, whoa, this just got a hell of a lot more interesting.
Well,
but yes, you're saying something really profound in the sense that you've got to be weird in order to be normal or to deal with normal, because normal will just mess with you so much.
Yeah, I reckon it does.
The exhaust fumes of that normality is just going to be something that you will have to deal with somewhere down the track. Oh, okay, interesting theory. Normal is bad.
Well, it's just
standard life scripts limited. Are bad.
Well, limited. There's some there's a method in it. Like, I think the essence of it is true. You kind of need a job. You go much better if you're in a partnership. You just feel better. You need a house. Like, all that stuff's good, but how you express yourself in the world is unique to you. And if you're restricting that too much, because I really am a Freudian at the heart of it all, Jerry, I think that lends a certain elegance and sophistication to my weirdness. Perhaps it even justifies it. I don't know, but there's also a truth in there somewhere. Like, if you restrict yourself too much, you crack the sads, you get miserable, you eat too much sugar, you whinge a lot, you fight with your partner because you don't know how to deal with your problems, and then you just basically become a pain in the ass. Oh, what's going on today? But to yourself, you upset yourself. Like, it's hard to be with yourself when you can't accept who you are.
Yeah, that's so true, isn't it? And now we get to the crux of it: is accepting who you are, accepting the past.
Oh yes, righto. Yep. Okay. Fair enough.
Well, accepting who you are means accepting, I guess, who you're going to run into. Which, for the record, I did handle really well today.
Yeah, good. Well, okay. Well, perhaps we'll hear about that in a minute. But I think when you run into someone from your past, you might have an ongoing battle with them, for example. like
Ooh.
some kind of, like something that was never quite guns at dawn sorted out,
Ooh.
Yeah, like who was better at, I don't know, whatever, eating chocolate or potentially getting that boyfriend, or I don't, like whatever, some storyline that was important to them. Because I find when you run into a person like that, they'll always bring it up. They'll always remind you of whatever the battle was that they needed to win.
So it may have unfinished business.
I suspect they do. But it seems like a lot of people have unfinished business with me, but I don't really, I'm a bit sort of, I don't know. I wasn't in the same story that they were in, so I wasn't aware of the role I was playing in their story because I was probably at the library or, doing something fun. And I just, so it's tricky to navigate when they bring up their story. You have to quickly go back in time and go, well, what role was I? You have to make sense of the role you played in their life at the time quickly so that it doesn't turn into a fist fight. Or maybe this is just my life. I mean, like I said, I was a bit weird. People just wanted to have fights with me all the time.
This is a huge cognitive load to have in the supermarket queue.
It is. It's like you're sitting there just minding your own business, looking at Vogue or something boring, and someone goes, they there's always like a needling, like, oh, and have you had your hair cut? Look, it looks so much better. You lost a bit of weight, it's all these sorts of comments. You're like, okay, what do I say to that? Like, what I'd really like to say is just the truth, which is like, God, you're boring, which is sort of true. Like if you have to talk about your haircut, well, this is what I think. I'm into the inner world, Jerry, as you know. Like, I like deep and interesting and connection and let's make sense of shit. Like, I'm not really interested in how you look on the outside, and I'm not even that interested, I don't really care about that stuff.
Yes, but that is us because we're used to a therapeutic setting and because we're used to really heavy and important stuff and dealing with that, hopefully and on a good day as sincerely and authentically and helpfully as possible.
Yeah.
Everything.
Trying.
You can be in situations where things seem really, really, exactly as you say, trivial.
I think there's probably something for me to. Well, I don't want to marginalise the ordinary because the ordinary holds you together. Like you need it. But I think I'm usually about 3 steps behind when I meet someone like that, and they're like, okay, I'm trying to figure out like who did you think I was in your life, and how close or far away from that identity am I today? And then I have to if I'm in a good mood and I care a bit, I don't want to cause a fist fight, I'll try and pretend to be that old self just to get through the interaction and get my shopping and leave. Like I'll be like, oh yeah, I generally fall back on how to win friends and influence people and just give lots of compliments and, be nice. Oh, God, it cuts me to say be nice. Be so polite.
Yeah.
Anyway. Okay, where are we going with this? So how do you handle it? Like, what do? You probably have you probably have a more normal plan, I suppose.
No, I don't have a normal plan at all. I think just that. I think that the interaction, how the interaction goes or how much it affects you, what predicts that is how much you've come to terms with the period in your life that person represents to you.
Yeah, that's very true.
So I saw somebody today, just this morning. What helped was I had my headphones in and I had a lot of props. So I was at the cafe.
I think props are really good. What did you have, like a magazine or something, or some glasses?
I had a newspaper. I had my phone. I had my headphones in. I had to futz around, and then I went back on busy. I looked busy and the environment was busy. So the interaction was, but I really like how you put it. I really like that you go back to the social skills you learned before 8 years old. So,
hello, Mrs. So-and-so. How are you today? I'm well, thank you. You do that something.
Yeah. So yes, all of that is good while simultaneously looking busy.
You're so self-aware, Jerry. You're self-aware for yourself, but also for the other person. And I think it's hard to know who you're doing it. You're doing the self-awareness for everybody, maybe. I have to do, as I get older, I like making people feel uncomfortable. And then we have this chocolate shop down the road, down the bottom of the hill. Where
wow.
I know. It's a chocolate, and the lady who runs it's a bloody hoot, and she's got this chronic arthritis, which is not good. But she's so sarcastic and she likes to give you a dig. So at some point, probably from doing therapy for years and years, I learned how to lean into that and get really close to someone. And so when she tries it on with me, I go, "How are you feeling today, Lorraine?" And she tries to dig me, but because they try and deflect. Like people that use a lot of sarcasm are really good at doing this. And I go, "You're not feeling good, huh?" And we sit and I hold it. We sit there. We have this face-off of sarcasm versus vulnerability. And this is the kind of sadistic activities I like to do at the chocolate shop. When people see me and try it on, I'm like, no, we're going to feel this. We're all going to feel this.
I am so impressed. I can barely speak.
What
did you just say? It was a face-off of sarcasm versus vulnerability.
Versus vulnerability. I'm like, how are you feeling today, Lorraine? Are you in a bit of pain? Yeah. It's hard to live without arthritis, isn't it? You know, because you might lose the use of your hands. I know this. Well, you got to master cruelty, right? To deal with cruelty, you got to, and she's really cruel because she's really like she's a character. She's a real card. She's really resentful. she likes to ladle it on everyone. So she comes down, like, you buy some chocolate and she'll say, "Should you really have that? Should you? Is that you were just in yesterday, weren't you?" Like, so you have this face off about who's more inadequate.
I am absolutely stunned. It's sort of like the opposite of chocolat. It's the opposite of that narrative about the stranger comes into town and nurtures people or gives them what they need with a special spell. It's like the absolute opposite.
Yeah, I love it.
And the chocolate's only kind of always 90% cacao.
You I can't say that word. In the wrong direction. No. You don't really need. She's a character. This is the kind of neighbourhood I feel at home in. Like, there's sort of love there. You understand each other. What you're saying is, I see you. I'm onto you, and we're still talking. There's something real about that conversation.
That makes me think that the meta message when I run into people is, "I don't see you. Please don't see me."
Yeah, that's where we're going.
Let's just see our social selves and move on.
Oh God, I loved her. She's sad. I think she's actually sold the shop now, which is a bloody disgrace. But it was a crutch I was using a while ago now. Sadly, I've evolved. Or at least the scale told me I had to. So she was so funny. Anyway, enough of that talk. It's wrong, isn't it? I loved doing that with her. I loved playing that game with her. It was so funny. She was funny. She had a sense of humor. Gee, she ladled it on. God, she ladled it right on.
Wow. Was the choc any good?
It was all right.
So the product.
Yeah, it was all right. Well, it was gluten-free. That was the main attraction because at the time we were having massive reactions to wheat. So boring, bloody remedial diet issues. So boring, but it's just life, isn't it? What can you do? You got to deal with it. Righto, what are we talking about here? Oh, yes, dealing with the past. Okay, yeah, God, let's go back to that. That's snooze. I mean,
there's more. I've got even more.
Okay, well, you keep going, and you've always got a bit of a plan, which is really amazing. Must be that clinical psych training.
I don't have a plan. I've got I have been through phases in my life where I seek out the past Usually this involves trolling through Facebook.
Good.
I'm
stalking,
not on Facebook,
yes.
so I have to pretend
smart.
to be my partner, which
just make a false account.
Yeah, he's not really happy with that. It must be said.
No, because he gets yeah. Well, all right, fair enough. That's like that. That's the amateur stalking strategy, Jerry. But okay.
It's all I've got. And
not to worry, I'm channeling a bit of Lorraine from the chocolate shop. Sorry, I just need to get rid of that.
No, that's going. Okay. We love Lorraine.
Yeah. She's great. Yeah, anyway, so you're stalking.
I think if you have an ochre name, Narelle, Lorraine, Thelma,
she was great.
You have to Pat.
Yeah.
You have to Margaret, maybe I'd even put in there.
I love Margaret.
Jury's still out on that name. You need the persona to go with it.
I loved her. I do love her. I can't really do sarcasm as well as she could. She was so good at it. God, I was trying to study her. I wanted to become her just for a little bit. You know, people who are really good at sarcasm is a terrible thing, but it's terrible. It's like your skin gets ripped off you when someone does it really well. It's not but it's a dark gift. It's a dark ability, but I can't do it. Well, no, something stops me. Anyway, I was trying to study her to get it, to practice it. But anyway, we're talking about two different things. Back to your past stuff, Jerry. That's more interesting.
I want to go in the direction of sarcasm because sarcasm is the spice of life. If you are in a culture or a environment where sarcasm is frowned upon, it becomes very super, super polite and super, super pleasant.
That's true.
Super bland and even a little robotic. And the classic example of that is when Australians visit America, and it seems like nobody is ever sarcastic, or at least not in public life, not in their. I
don't think Americans get irony. They don't seem to if you watch their comedy shows, don't seem to use a lot of irony. So sarcasm's like a weaker form of irony. I mean, it can have more punch, but to be really ironic shows a lot of intelligence. It shows deep understanding of the truth, I reckon.
Yeah.
But sarcasm's tricky because, some clients, like, you can't. What do you think about this? I think using sarcasm in therapy is really dangerous because it's hard to control unless you know your client really well and they use sarcasm themselves. Maybe, but I don't know. Like, it can really backfire. What do you think?
I don't know. Marsha Linehan
what does she say
about being irreverent, and I sort of think that's a bit cultural as well. I feel like saying, got it, Marsha. I can be irreverent. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, stop talking now.
Well, see, it disturbs when you use humour in therapy. It bumps the predominant storyline a little bit, and it bumps the person's point of attention into a new way of seeing themselves, especially if they give you feedback by laughing. It means that they get something about what they're telling you. Like, there's an alternative way of looking at it. So it bumps the dominant paradigm they're living in. But to use sarcasm to do that, well, maybe I just don't have the skills to do that. Maybe is probably what I'm realizing.
Just can't do it. With you, it's high risk, and why be high risk?
Yeah, well, it's just But I've got a couple of clients that are really sarcastic, and they are the trickiest because you on the surface you might think, we can use sarcasm here, but when you use sarcasm, it's not that it's right or wrong. It's just that it does something to you. You know?
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out what that is at the moment.
Yeah. Do you constantly run into people?
Not really. I when I was younger, I did. I sort of live further out of the secret city now, but when I was younger, I lived more in the centre of town, and it's tricky. I think when you've moved on and you've had moved on a few times, because they might remember you from like a school environment or maybe even a first year of uni in a very loosely social situation, and of course you're growing and changing all through those years. So when you meet them, they remember you from whenever you were in their life, but you're not that, may not be that person anymore. So it's hard to, I remember being at, I can't name the festival without revealing the secret city. Anyway, let's say.
Sorry, I just find that hilarious.
Well, I was at a festival. In my secret city, suburbs like to have festivals. Let's say it like that. Suburbs such a terrible name. Like districts, kind of more
neighborhoods. It depends on how big you're referring to, but yeah, we don't have the right words in English, do we?
Well, I suppose the older suburbs of my secret city have festivals, and I was at one of the aforementioned festivals. So, you know, like the full festival experience, music, close all the streets, the whole show. I ran into someone from high school, and it was like the only shared we were both stuck there trying to be polite to each other. And the only shared history we had was being at the school we went to. That was really it. We didn't really have it, and our lives didn't really interlace in any other way. There wasn't really anything. I didn't feel we had a connection at the time. She was a nice enough person. Nice.
Yeah.
But we didn't really share anything. So I didn't actually know what to say or how to. It was like we were total strangers, really. But we kind of knew each other's name.
Yeah, that's pretty deep, isn't it? The other disturbing thing that has just popped into my head is I think we're having a big whinge about running into people. And sometimes, for the record, sometimes it can be a gift.
Sure.
Not sure if we actually have any examples of that, but theoretically.
In theory, it's a potential.
In theory. However, I think we've passed the point. Don't you think that people we went to high school with would not actually recognise us and we would not recognise them? Has aging just made that a non-problem for us?
Well, I don't know. It's a good question. I suppose we will find out. We will find out.
We will find out as we festival go in our city of origin, should that ever come up.
Well, look, I know this is a terrible thing to say, but it's probably because of my weirdness. But I just found most people I knew in my childhood pretty dull and boring. And the most exciting thing they had was dissing on each other, which is like, after you've seen that for a bit and you've acquired a level of sarcastic skill, it's kind of like, we've done that, I wipe the floor with you, whatever. You know, there's nothing else going on. So I think the person I was way back when was really kind of not really very self-expressed. I was kind of like a bit cardboard, because culture really restricts your self-expression, and in our sunny original state, as you know, at times it was a bit of a police state. There was a lot of restriction that was overt and covert, and a lot of, I would call it, hidden interpersonal violence that was sometimes sanctioned or institutionalized, and sometimes it wasn't. But people were not very. There was a background of violence everywhere. As it was my memory of being there. There was a background of, you don't say that, you can't do that. There's a lot of a can't, don't, and shouldn't, as opposed to let's explore this. Let's try and see what's going on here. Let's let's meet each other. Even it was actually quite hard to meet and make friends with anybody.
Yes.
So maybe that's me. It could be just me. I never really got the answer to that question.
No, this is matching my experience, and what I wonder if it's still like that, or if that place is frozen in time for us.
It might be.
If we went back there, would everybody be frolicking around, being friendly and authentic, and having barbecues that reflect a diversity of life scripts?
There was, I think Queensland had some serious development from about 1990 onwards, and they had World Expo in 1988, which was massive. Southbank had a big facelift. And
I remember it.
Oh, yeah. I think we all remembered. It was like, gosh, Wealth came to town and suddenly Virgin's headquarters were there and we had cheap flights out of the place. You could not get out of Brisbane for less than $650 either way back. Like airfares were still like triple what they are now. And so I think it might just be frozen in time for us. We may be refugees of a lost culture, Jerry. That's quite romantic. I think I could maybe own that.
It sounds quite romantic, but we both know it was not.
It was full of sunburn and mozzies. And not enough
bad
stuff.
Public transport.
Oh, mate, don't even. I don't have enough energy to recall that today, but yes, the public transport was terrible. Oh, geez, that was bad. I was living like something like 20 minutes from campus where my parents lived, and it took me 3 buses and 2.5 hours to get home.
Yeah. And everybody, you needed a car.
It was just terrible.
Desperately.
I know. And of course, my parents didn't believe in that, so they'd come straight off the farm. You don't buy things you don't need. There's a bus, it's good enough.
Yeah.
And then there was a bit of this, stop whinging. No, we're not listening to it. There was a lot of we're not listening to it. When I was a child, we had to walk through the desert without thongs.
Yeah.
It's not true.
I can remember walking. Well, it was true for that secret city. I can remember walking really far just to get places because you may as well walk rather than wait for the bus an hour.
I've got to tell you a whinge about that particular medical specialist at the barbecue we've spoken about on this episode. Lots of confidentiality and privacy. So this person had a car, bastard. And I was always sort of loitering around trying to look friendly and hoping to get, because they lived near my parents. So one night we were driving down Fred Chanel Drive. Like she was, great. Lift home from the library, great. She's like, I'm going home. I can give you a lift. Anyway, we get to the bottom of Fred Chanel Drive and she goes, actually, I think I need to go and just to Mum's work. I'm not going to go home now. This is the story of my life.
Was surprising.
Yeah. I'll just drop you at the bus stop. I'm like, oh. And I was a genius when it came to all the bus lines in Brisbane. So this particular bus stop was about 4 buses removed from my home. So it was going to take me till, I think it was about 7 o'clock. It was going to take me till 11 to get home. Anyway, and we hadn't even left campus yet. So the word bitch is not strong enough to express but there was nothing you could say because it was like, if you didn't have a car.
Yeah.
You may as well have had a wheelbarrow. And that would have helped, actually. A wheelbarrow would have helped me carry those bloody books home.
Yeah.
Anyway.
It was tough times. Also, we didn't have podcasts or...
No, there's no podcasts. No, none of that.
How did we all amuse ourselves waiting for public transport for so long? Oh, mate, I was at the library. I think that's what I used to do. Still love the smell of a library. That's musty paper smell. Something very, very comforting.
Yep.
About libraries even today.
I know.
Yeah, we better
Good
go.
Times.
We better go soon,
now.
Emmy. Yeah, because I'm feeling a bit saddy poo about people waiting for public transport. People battling their bomby cars because that's the other side of that.
Oh, no. Yeah, I finally got a bomb for a car. I had to do deals with my parents. And some of it, this is when I discovered I had supernatural powers because that was the only currency available to me. I had I had a couple of terrible jobs. This is very sad. You're right. There's no way we can make this kind of uplifting and inspiring. But anyway, I got myself a car. I thought, it was sort of like I did some sort of magical gesture, cross my fingers and hope for the best. Anyway, Dad started to get this car together. And in the beginning, I was going to own the thing. Like, it was so overwhelming to me. I think I rejected it. I couldn't imagine myself as a car owner. So then he was like, no, well, we'll own the car. You can use it. So there was all this hidden control in the culture in Queensland. It's like, no, we're not going to let you off the reins ever. I'm going to hang on to you forever.
Yeah.
So the only answer to that was to just cut everything and go.
Yeah. Isn't it? It's so interesting that we both have very different stories where cars feature prominently. Sure. You haven't heard my stories,
yes.
Okay. Suffice to say, there was a lot about different forms of public transport and different kinds of cars, but very prominent, and the jobs and all of that. But isn't it strange that we both have a kind of a sense of flatness about that aspect of our past?
It wasn't good, like, when I look back on it. And at the same time, it was also the only game in town. Like, it was the only, I think by the time I got to about just the end of the degree I did arts, and then I did honours, like with you. But I was like, I can't stay here. There is no future for me in this place. I will just get crushed over and over and over again. And that was just the reality. And I think maybe because I was weird, I was like, it was easier to recognise that I couldn't get involved. It was like there was a culture of bullying going on. I mean, I don't know if bullying is a strong enough word. It's suppression, repression, violence, like low-grade interpersonal violence all the time. I just thought, there's no way I can survive here. I've got no allies and there'll be no opportunities.
Yeah.
And then I kind of, it's helpful to be able to go backpacking, leave Australia.
Yeah.
Because I discovered that the rest of the world's not like that necessarily. Like, it's not as extreme. I mean, there are other problems, of course, but
yes. I know this is very clinical psychology, but what's an action point to make it different?
Want an action point?
I guess it is in my secret city, even though it's awkward to run into people, I have to be friendly to strangers. I have to say, hey,
sure,
your life script is okay.
Or there are options, Jerry. You can do that, or you can do the Lorraine intervention.
Maybe I could just do that with a gesture, like, hey, all right.
Oh, man.
Even though this is weird, I'm supporting you.
Oh, no. Well, I think there's a skill to putting on a mask and playing a role when needed. Like, I don't think that's a bad thing, is it? Like, if you're talking to someone who, you got to kind of gauge their level of potential connection. And if they're more afraid of themselves than they are of, you seeing them, then it's probably better just not to disturb them in their festy cesspool of fear. I think, I've got my own clients. I've got enough to do. I'm not going to bloody take on more, especially if you're not paying me. You don't get access to this without some kind of fee. This is.
I just need a supportive gesture, like, "Hey, right on."
You want a gesture? I'm trying to put myself in your shoes and figure out how the hell I would handle the woofty secret city encounters.
It's always
it depends
easier.
on who it is, I suppose.
It depends on one's state of mind. Sometimes you're in a good state of mind, and it's all okay. Everything's all okay because you're not in the secret state of origin. Oops.
The maroons.
And sometimes everything's okay, when you're wearing a puffy vest.
I think
you're wearing a puffy vest, or if you're wearing a particular Uniqlo item that makes you feel good.
Yes, there you go. See, that's your armour, isn't it? You feel yourself in those
but the puffy vest just says, hey, I'm all right. My torso is warm.
Cool.
And my arms are ready for action.
And you've pumped your own tires. You pump the vest looks pumpy. Like you can. No, it says I pump my own tires. I'm okay. I don't need your approval, actually.
Yeah. Yeah. And yet it's not a puffer jacket, which denotes more of an urge to fit in.
So you're not as extreme as me, maybe. I don't know. Okay, well, I don't know. I think you put on a mask as required. You just do the social skills you learned under the age of 6 or 8 or whatever. And
yeah,
I mean, so isn't that what most people want? Like most people, I think I find it a strange desire, but most people don't want to really know themselves or other people, which I don't know how they live. Well, then they come and see me, and that changes. Let me tell you, that changes. Good times.
Poor unsuspecting people.
Well, I point out that we can't go on this way because it's making us miserable. And they finally, if they keep coming, they're like, okay, we'll do this. We'll do this thing. We'll start being me. I'll start accepting my weirdness and get on with it. And it's great when you use this on couples. Oh man, couple work. I love working with couples when everyone gets on board because it's like a great big fun game then. But that's another story, isn't it, Jerry? I haven't been very focused this session, have I? Once again, like you're no, I haven't. We've been. I feel like I've let the side down.
Must be that. Not at all. The barbecue story, I'm still processing. I'm still processing.
I know. Me too.
I'll just drop you at the bus stop while I go and may or may not have an affair.
She was the one where later. See, I got my own back because at the barbecue, like 15 years later, I could see her husband and our other friend were getting it on. And I thought, there is justice in this world. You just need to wait. No one gets away with anything.
Okay, if you've ever violated the IMI code of public transport and lift giving, you need to be very, very afraid of your karma.
There's a universal law that gets enacted down the line. Anyway,
good I'm totally freaked out about my past.
All right, we got to bugger off.
Yeah, so
until next time.
Bye.
See you, Jerry. Bye.
See ya.